Hello and welcome to our podcast, The Ups and Downs of a Small Business Owner, where we hope to show you exactly what it's like to grow a business. Today I'm here with Ben, we did just go through this, but Klewpatinond, award winner, co-founder of FloatRower and founder of Inond. How would you describe yourself, Ben?
How would I describe myself? Personally, I'm husband, father, brother. I would say rower, but not as much now. Business side, a designer, inventor, entrepreneur now, I guess I would call myself. Mentor. Yeah. As keywords, that's kind of how I describe myself.
A lot of hats.
A lot of hats, and I have been wearing a lot of hats over the years as well. So yes, from either corporate world, consultancy, startup, and now starting to run my own business.
So if we kind of go back, I know you created FloatRower and Inond and things like that, but if we go back kind of to the start, wherever the start is for you, what started your journey to where you are now?
What started my journey? I would go all right the way back to school. So I was one of those who actually did art and design at school at GCSE all the way through to A levels, went to university and actually did computer-aided product design, completed that and went to do a master's in London at Goldsmiths. And my undergraduate was very more engineering based, I would say, more design engineering based, whereas my master's was more arty, more theoretical, more critical. And that's where I kind of learned more of the design critical thinking approach to what we do now. So having graduated, then actually found a job in design. And there's so many other people who would then go off and do other things, go into sales or whatever. But I managed to then know that I wanted to do that and managed to get a job in manufacturing and plastic products for a few months, which was a kind of a KPI, which a KTP, a knowledge transfer partnership, which was organised by the Innovate UK and people like that. So managed to get an opportunity to work for a plastic production company and help them look at their new opportunities for their products that they're already making for other people. And so I think that really helped open the doors for me to say, look, you're not just a designer, you're also looking at other things that are happening with the products and the businesses themselves. I managed to then get into a role as a design engineer for Bristan Group, who I think most people, if they go into a bathroom now or a toilet, they'll see Bristan on a logo, particularly in the UK. I think 1 in 4 taps, something like that back in the day was Bristan. But they were part of a massive multi-billion pound or dollar corporation in the States called Masco, who own lots of different companies. So worked there for a few years and actually was able to really get hands-on with a lot of different projects in the bathroom industry. So from inclusive design products, walk-in baths, which a lot of people won't talk about because they're not seen as sexy or exciting products.
Sorry, a walk-in bath?
Yeah. So I actually invented a walk-in bath as well whilst I was there. So I did have a patent. I think the patent's been dropped now. But we invented a walk-in bath, which was a quick fill and quick empty bath. Okay. So if you think about that scenario, most people, we'll take it for granted, you and I, right? So we'll just fill the bath up and go do something else and switch it off when it's ready and we'll get in, done. We'll get out when we're finished and we'll dry ourselves while it's emptying. But if you think, if you're less abled or if you're disabled or if you have a mobility issue or something like that, then you haven't got the choice sometimes to get yourself in the bath by yourself. So without the use of other aids or someone else to help you. So from a dignity perspective, it's also quite nice to be able to do those things yourself independently. So if somebody could get into the bath, sit down whilst it filled up, the traditional ones that you'd see at the back of the back of a magazine or a newspaper, those stereotypical ones that are showing an older person getting out of a chair. It's not always an older person. And that's the thing, is then making sure that we're covering all bases. So the idea of this product that we developed was you would walk into the bath, hence the name, close the door behind you, but within the system, it would quick fill. So it'd already start pre-filling in a tank underneath the bath. And so it was already warm. So the seat was then warmed up as well. So by the time you sat in this normally cold, empty bath, it was already warming like under seat, like our cars, right? So it's already warming you. But by the time you're in, it could quickly flood basically the bottom of the bath while it was still filling up as well, which meant that the time that you were sat in there cold was reduced. So hopefully the experience was better. That's fine because you're not already wet, as you know as well. I'm sure most people, when you're go swimming or something, and you get out and you're suddenly freezing cold because as soon as the cold air touches your wet skin, you get freezing cold. So that's the main problem, is that when you'd finished your bathing experience, if you like, you would then start to feel cold as the water was draining out. That's when people would potentially become unwell. So if you could quickly flush it all out and almost like evacuate the water really quickly, so then you can get up and open the door and get out, there'll be a better experience from the user.
Yeah, I didn't even think, because actually, if you open the door, the water's going to go everywhere. So you've got to clear the water before the actual door opens. Yeah.
There's some small things in there as well. Obviously, the door opens inwards, which doesn't help because of access, but it means that the pressure from the water is pushing outwards, which means the door will never open outwards and spill water everywhere. But it means you can't get out until the water's gone either.
Yeah.
So,
I guess if we kind of go back a bit, you said that you did product and design. Is that something you always wanted to do? Was that the dream?
It was either art or design, I think. I go right back to school, I was always drawing, always creating, always making, always painting, and always looking at stuff and how things worked. I think there was always that curiosity in me that was then thinking, how does this work? Why is it done that way? I think even as a child, even building and, old school, everybody's played with Lego, but then what would you make from Lego? What could you create from it? But also with the art side, I was probably torn between both. And I think at school, you're doing both at the same time from the creativity side. But then when you have to pick something like at GCSEs or A-levels, it was like, which one? I think that curiosity from the kind of the maths and the engineering side kind of drew me more to the product to be able to design, because you can also use the abilities that we created or learned from art and drawing and sketching, etc., and that creativity side, but actually putting it into something that's going to be, in my mind anyway, something tangible that we could use and build, and hopefully eventually you'd sell products and things like that. And it goes back as well to painting, is always having those little models, you've got Airfix and all those little characters, like Warhammer and all those people, right? I'm sure I shared something a while ago about that, because Superman is now obviously going to bring out a new movie about that. So it's cool now, right? But it's always been cool for certain demographics and certain people. And actually the skills that you learn from doing those and the fine technical skills meant you could then put your hand to other things. So that's always been there from a design side of things.
I think that's pretty cool, because most people don't know what they want to do or are very far away from what they want to do at school. I knew I was good at maths, but that was about it. Okay, fine, I'll go into something with maths. And it was only, I went to A-level, or I tried to do A-levels, dropped out after the first year. That was when I decided I'll go into accountancy at college. Up until then, I had no experience or no knowledge of it at all. So I guess kind of you were quite clued up on what you enjoyed and what you wanted to do from quite a young age.
I'd say probably when you're making those choices, when you're forced to make those choices, I think is the unfortunate thing with the system, right? Is that you have to make those choices. So I think before that, I wanted to be a vet.
Okay.
Right. So I loved animals. I still love animals and wildlife. And I wanted to be a vet. But I don't know. I obviously changed my mind, as a child does. And 1 minute you want to be this, 1 minute you want to be that. I think go back further, I want to be a fireman. I wanted to be when I was a little child, I wanted to be a lion. Right? Why not?
You can be whatever you want to be.
I can be whatever I want to be. But obviously that was a long, long time ago. But then that transition, things inform or help you make your decisions, but doesn't mean you can't still enjoy those other things that you wanted to be or wanted to do. In the same way, like liking animals and wildlife is an interest in what we do as a family, but also maybe with projects that we might work on in the future. Is actually we have a vested interest in that anyway, so we can add more value to those projects, but from a different lens, not having to be the actual vet or the person looking after the animals, but from a different standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a footballer, and unfortunately I didn't quite make it. I was hopeful. So I guess you also mentioned rowing, and that's been a big part of your journey.
Yeah, so I guess if we're going back a little bit from the bathroom industry world was... So I worked on loads of different products as well there with digital showering when that started to come out as well. And actually I brought out my first range of taps when I was there, which were in Homebase in 2010. So I think there's a selfie of me somewhere next to a range of taps, probably looking like a strange... Wow, he really loves those taps. God, he's cool. But it's seeing one of the first products that you've developed go to mainstream, if you like, into... consumer space that people like yourself or who aren't in that world will be able to go buy it and put it in their own home without you realizing who designed it. I think that's the lovely thing of being able to then create something that can go to real people without giving it to your friends and family and saying, go use this because I designed it. But from that world has then moved on to the design consultancy. And then that's where we kind of talk a bit more about rowing. Moved into design consultancy, but prior to that, I've rowed since I was about 18, since I was at uni. So it's one of those kind of decisions you make when you go to university. Do I join a club? Do I join a sports club? I used to play rugby before that, but I was smaller back then, and I was still growing actually when I went to uni. And you'll ask my wife Hannah, and she'll say, "Yeah, I think you were still growing when we met." Okay, but I was smaller back then, and so I wanted to take up another sport. So rowing seemed like the good thing to try because I was still fit and healthy, etc. Give it a go. So I've rowed for over half my life now. I'm actually a qualified British rowing coach as well, former Milton Keynes Rowing Club captain as well. The top boat there, the Elite Carbon 8, is named after my eldest daughter as well, that the club named after for some of the work we did and raising the money and stuff for that at the time. So yeah, quite heavily involved in rowing and still am to some regard, which we can go into in a bit. But going back to the kind of design and design consultancy world is that we obviously worked on loads of different projects back then. And one of the ones that I came up with nearly 10 years ago now, sounding old, nearly 10 years ago now was FloatRower, a device that, or a way that we could actually bring the sensation, the feeling of rowing on water onto dry land. We could then hopefully, when you couldn't get on the water, you could then train on land. And this was when we were first targeting, say, elite or club rowers who rowed on water. But that whole project evolved over the years as it moved on.
So I'm just going to kind of pull that back a little bit. So you're working as an employee.
Yep.
And then you created FloatRower. What was the transition there?
So when we came up with FloatRower, it was part of so let's go back maybe a year before that. Pretty on time and now is so Lewis Hamilton's dad, Anthony Hamilton, came in. He had an idea to develop something for F1 driving, 14 I'd say, and so we started to do some work with him on some other projects and with F1 driving ones with cameras and LEDs, things for go-karts. We developed a football product as well, which we launched for kids for Kicky Uppy, a device basically for training, and also a training mat that we developed, which is one of the first. You see quite a lot of mats out there now, just the mats, but we made a connected, intelligent one that you could train kids, basically the technique. As you said, you wanted to be a footballer.
If I had that,
if you'd had that, I think you'd be up there. We wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be out there with the training. But yeah, so we developed quite a few other sporting type of devices and products, which was really cool. And like I said, because I've been rowing for so long, we just started talking about other sports and other equipment that we could develop. And it was also looking at the time, because they were heavily talking about F1 and how drivers were training before they go and race. They're going to be in the if you like, the seat or the cockpit area of the F1 car for hours on end without getting out when they're practicing or when they're actually doing the race. But how do you prepare for that before you actually go and race? And you're in there for a couple of hours without getting out, and the amount of water, etc., they lose and sweat whilst they're in there. How do they prepare for that? How do they prepare their body and their mind before going to do it? So an interesting thing there was rowing does a lot of that, as in you're using most of your muscles in your body when you're rowing, but also you're using your mind at the same time, because you're focusing on the technique, the rhythm and everything else behind that, but also trying to feel what's happening in the boat, not just your stereotypical image of someone using a rowing machine of beasting it in the gym or whatever. It's not like that. There's the finesse and the lovely technical side of it that makes the boat go faster, because you're not upsetting everything else. And actually, by being more technical, you are actually working harder sometimes, because it's harder to control that and maintain it for a longer period of time.
I guess mentally, it's a lot more of a strain kind of thinking about as you hit the water and things like that. And so it's not just about, as you say, being a beast in the gym and just smashing it, because that doesn't quite work. I guess still like that transition of when you've left that. Did you leave the job when you started doing this F1 stuff? No,
so we were still working there. So and I make a point of, I came up with that idea when I was employed. as well, because I didn't then own any of the intellectual property because I was employed at the design consultancy at the time. I think that's a really big thing from a design perspective as well. FloatRower. Yeah. So when I proposed that idea and we started to develop it, I was still employed at the design consultancy, and we started to work on that for a couple of years, a year and a half, whilst I was working on other projects as well. So it was just a project at the time. But whilst you're working on that, because you've already got that kind of vested interest in it, you start doing other things, as in start helping. Oh, I think you need a website, you need social media, you need all this other stuff. So we started to develop that because you could see that there was no other support behind the business or the idea apart from what we were doing. And so it got to a point at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, there was an opportunity to say, all right, do we move on from the consultancy and try and launch this as its own business or project, separate to the, obviously, and basically getting me out full time to go and work on this. At the beginning of 2018, kind of made that decision, scarily at the time as well, but I managed to kind of get myself a 12-month agreement, at least minimum, to help make it an easier decision to go from full-time employment. However, in hindsight, from now running my own business for the last couple of years properly, is there's no real difference from if you're employed or if you're working for yourself. Even if you are employed, yes, you have a 4-week or 3-month notice period, but redundancies can happen or the shift of the business, then you're not in control of it. Whereas actually now when you work for yourself, you are in control of all of those things, and you really look at things a lot differently than when you're employed.
I mean, this is something I argue a lot. It really frustrates me. Like, if you're going for a mortgage and you're employed, they'll take your free pay slips, no problem. You can afford this for the rest of your life. Yeah. If you're self-employed, they want 3 years. And what blows my mind is my employees can use their pay slip and they can kind of have that protection. I don't get that protection. The reality is, if my business doesn't work, who's going first, me or them? I think it's crossed it never happens and it never works like that. But it still confuses me because the reality is I will be the one that gets to stay, and they will be the one that loses their job and will have to find something else and that. Yeah, employees are seen as having all that protection. I think people are just scared of what they don't know. Going out on your own, everything is yours. You have to control everything. The reality is, you're kind of doing that all anyway as an employee. You've got the protection of somebody else doing the sales, somebody else doing that bit, but you still have to do everything. You still have to kind of stay on top of everything. I think it's just the fear of going out on your own. Like you said, you didn't know and you hadn't done it. So it was like, oh my God, this is a huge challenge. This is a huge pressure to go and do it.
Yeah, you only know what you know, right? And so if you've never been exposed to that or experienced it, then how would you? And if everybody around you as well is in the same situation, you're comfortable as well, and you carry on. And it is easier in that way because you know what you're getting at the end of the month, if you're talking about monetary side of things, right? But also you know what your role is because it's been specified, and that's exactly what you're supposed to do. From then moving to effectively contracting was a big jump, and obviously we've got a family by that point as well. I've got 3 small kids at that point, and my wife and I. It's like, okay, what do we do? Let's carry on because there's a great opportunity here to turn this into something which could be incredible. And so basically left the consultancy, set up myself, and if you look on paper, Inond was set up in 2018 for that very reason, to start contracting. Right, as myself. And so I started to contract directly to work on this project. And it's with the plan, this was then going to turn into a business, and then we're going to start building and selling rowing machines to the world, right? So we were then developing the next versions of the proof of concepts, the rigs, if you like. So the consultancy, we designed the look and feel of it. Started to build rigs, so basically proof of concepts, so building out the way that it should feel rather than what it should look like, but actually get that feeling from a mechanism side of things. Just summary, so FloatRower, it actually floated and rolled. So it moved up and down, it rolled side to side, and it had dual resistance and separate handles, so that where I said you could simulate that feeling of rowing on water on dry land, it was then trying to replicate those feelings that you'd get on water on a static machine. basically. But by exploring different ways of, we even used little yoga or Pilates or yoga balls filled with water, no water, using air, using other things just to try and get that feeling right. And it came down that actually a shock absorber at the right angle with the right geometry for the arms, link arms connected to it, gave you that correct feeling, or nicer feeling. And obviously then it would have been more cost effective than something really bespoke. And just because you're trying to simulate something that's on water doesn't mean you need water. And I think that's a major thing that people kind of see and saying, I want that. Should I not use that? No, that's the analogy. But actually, it doesn't need to be exactly the same thing.
I think I learnt that a lot in photography. My dad's a photographer. And when he's taking pictures of things, like it's not necessarily even the same product. It looks like that, but as you say, like if you need water, maybe use oil because it sits better and it holds its weight or something like that.
Yes.
And that kind of fascinates me in the way that it's almost like optical illusions and stuff. And I guess that's quite tough thinking outside the box because, as you say, like default, replicate water or use water. And actually, when you think of things very differently, and it's like, how do I solve this problem? And finding something else. I'm just going to go back a little bit. You said about contracting. You went contracting.
Yeah.
You had a family.
Yeah.
You've got your wife, Hannah. What does she say to you at this point? When you say, I'm going out on my own, let's see what happens, I'll quit my job.
I think we're in a position where also the consultancy was going through some changes as well. And it looked like the right time. When I started the consulting, it wasn't the same as when etc., as when I was leaving, as well as when others. So there were redundancies as well happening previously. So it's like, well, this seems like the right time to start looking at something else. And obviously then the conversations with Anthony were happening. Okay, well, maybe we should go do this separately. So Hannah was fully supportive, 100%. We've been together 22 years this year. So we've known each other since, I mentioned earlier, right? So I was still growing when we first met, but I was 18 at the time. We know each other very well. So she was 100% supportive behind that because it was the right thing to do. And it felt like the right thing to do because I was really bought into it, really passionate about it. And actually the opportunity, I think that it basically offered me could have been incredible. So yeah, to have that support really helped because you need someone fighting your corner as well. Because obviously if you're contracting for someone else, ultimately they are looking at what's in their interest as well, right?
Yeah.
And what they're hopefully going to get out from this contract to come into work for them and do something for them. So to have someone else to support you and to believe in you, then it is priceless, right? And also it gives you that confidence to be able to go and be better and do what you need to do, knowing that at home is all good.
Especially when you're nervous yourself.
Yeah.
You're not 100% certain that this is the exact thing you want to do. So it's still a little bit kind of anxiety, nervousness, and to have somebody there makes a big difference.
It's also the like we talked about a minute ago, the change from always being employed to then moving into a totally different kind of state, if you like. Hannah used to be in HR. She used to be an HR business partner, right, before what she does now, right? And so I got some inside help and what I should do. And so even by getting that 12-month agreement in place was advice from her to basically, you need to get this in place first to de-risk what you're going to do. Because had I done it, I was like, oh yeah, cool, let's go build this amazing machine and turn it into a million whatever dollar business. And I think Anthony said $1 billion businesses, but we know those don't all exist. And I would have probably just happily jumped on the ship and gone sailing kind of thing and gone, yeah, cool, let's go build something amazing without having those other things in place. So it's then having that contrast as well to bring you back down to say, look, this is also what you need in place, not just for yourself, not just for the family, but for yourself as well, to make sure that what you're about to embark on is, you're protected as well.
So she's also protecting you in that same way.
Protecting my interests, protecting what I'm trying to do, and not just obviously looking at us as the family, which is incredibly valuable at the time as well.
That's huge. I guess that also kind of, we'll come back to FloatRower, but that brings me on to how important have the people around you been? So both in personal and business, I guess, you've got Hannah, you've got the kids, you've got Anthony, who's had a big impact on you. Like, how important have all them people been in getting you to where you were?
to where I am now, or where we?
I guess, yeah, both. Where you are now then?
Where I got to there, incredibly valuable because particularly obviously Hannah and the kids, at that point we had 2. So we had another one afterwards. So we've got 3, 10, 8 and 6 now. So we've been busy, but we wanted that. We wanted that all closer together as well. So I think there's always someone there, and particularly because if you've known someone for a long, long time, they knew you before what you're like now, and you've grown together. You've grown up together and you've turned into who we are now together. Ironically, you say as well, like a lot of people don't see my, in the business world, locally now as well, a lot of people don't see me and Hannah together a lot in the business world because we've got kids. And we want to be active, present parents as well with the kids. So we'll take it in turns. So on a rare occasion, you'll see us together in a business sense. It's then knowing that where we've got to now and what we're trying to build ourselves in our own businesses is we have legacy. We know what each other's like before now. So we could go meet someone and they might think they know who you are, but actually they don't really know. They just come into, what do they say? They've just joined your book in this chapter.
They know this now, this you. They don't know.
They don't know me at uni. They don't know me in all these other situations and other life-changing experiences. They weren't there for those. Whereas having someone so close to you for so long is very powerful from a personal side of things, but also knows what's in your interest, I think is the main thing, because they're looking out for you, because sometimes you don't look out for yourself.
Definitely. Like I'd say, actually, you look out for yourself less than other people. And I've learned that a lot. When people have got aggressive with me, fine, I can deal with it, I'm happy with it. Then when I've seen somebody do exactly the same thing to one of my family, Rachel, my partner, or like my brother, I switch. I can't accept that. But when it's to me, it's fine. I've got no issues. So yeah, definitely it's looking out for that. So I guess also on this then, like you've mentioned, like the family, and you're both running entrepreneurial businesses. You're both award winners. You're both busy doing 2 completely separate things, plus the 3 kids at home. How do you juggle everything?
Juggle, yeah. Shared calendars, and clear expectations about what's important and when do you need to do stuff. But also, oh my goodness, the first thing I said was shared calendars, but we've had a shared calendar for goodness knows how long. I think even that, as a small kind of technical thing, is very powerful to know where everybody is, where you're going to be. But also, I guess now as well, very different to when, say, I was employed or when I was full-time doing something else and she was already running her own business, is then understanding where do you need to be. I think even as a dad, is you then, as you'll know as well, right, is you want to be around, you want to be present, but also making that work as well. And, you know, always being there for bedtime, always doing those things, being available. But actually what's interesting now is that because I'm being more free, because I'm making the decisions with my own business, if I need to go pick up the kids for whatever reason, or if I choose to, I can. You know, Hannah does the majority of it for sure, most of it, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to lie. It doesn't get shouted about, but as soon as a dad goes and does it, for example, I'll go do a pickup like one day, one afternoon a week. Everyone will notice. We don't notice all the other times that mum does it, which is an incredible thing. But I think that's society, and that's stuff that's happened over the years. And I think that narrative does need to change. But the thing is you're also a parent, and you are going to do the things you need to do. So you make it work. I think that's the other thing, is that, like you said, how do you juggle it? I think people use that word quite freely, but actually it is literally, sometimes you are juggling it. Unfortunately, with Hannah's business, HK Hair and Wellness, is that there are times that they work in the evening. So there's a handover. I think Hannah's mentioned it before to other people, is that we are literally sometimes swapping the kids over in the car park, swapping cars, or the kids are in the car and we swap over so that then we can take them home. I remember I was coming back from London one day the other year, and I think someone saw us swapping in the car park outside the Innovation Hub. And I think there was an event going on. I literally ran up from the train station, swapped in the car so she could go to the event, and I took the kids home. I think they'd already had dinner by that point, got into bed or whatever. But you just do what you need to do. And the kids see that, I think, is an important thing as well, because they can also see that we're also always around. we're all always available, but we're also busy working and doing our own thing, but we're always there for them, I think.
I guess that's also just prioritizing them as well and making sure that. But yeah, it is a struggle. Then it's there's no kind of perfect formula for it. It's just make it work.
I wouldn't struggle is an interesting word because that always comes across really bad and negative. It's just more consideration, I think, that needs to be taken because you've got other little lives involved. And from their eyes, they won't see it being a struggle or juggling. And I think that's the important thing, is making sure that they don't. And it's not struggling. It's actually just making sure that everything is done in the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And when you just...
And enjoy it.
When we said earlier, like, because to you, that's been 10 years, 8 years, 6 years. Mm. To them, that's their whole life. That's all they've ever known. They've only ever known whatever you've done for the last 10 years. As you say, like they're just used to it, and that is what that's what they enjoy. That's their way of doing it, which I find I'm slowly learning now. I've got a 2-year-old, so we're a little bit behind. It's like, wow, like her whole life has just been me and her mum. There's loads of other people in there, but that's kind of it.
I think if you also look back, I did this not long ago, actually. I was trying to reflect back on my own journey so far and thinking, what was my dad doing when he was my age? How old was I? I was trying to obviously do the maths. I'm going, what was I doing? What was he doing? Almost like trying to compare, thinking, what was I thinking when I was my daughter's age about my parents, right? And what was going on then? And even if you go try and do that yourself and kind of think back to look at your kid's age, what were you doing at that point? Like a 2-year-old, you probably can't remember. You probably remember from looking at photos or something. But, putting yourself in their shoes is a massive thing to do. And with anything anyway, not just talking about the family or kids, with business as well, is putting yourself in someone else's shoes or looking at from their perspective, or even perception. What do they know right now? What does a 2-year-old know compared to a 10-year-old? So much difference. So much happens in that, what seems like a short period of time, really. And even like between our kids, like 2 years between them, they are very different with what their understanding of the world is. And that's incredible to see, and actually to try and go down, not physically to their level, sometimes useful, but also from a mindset of like, how are they seeing the world? And I don't have any sisters, so I don't even know what it's like to grow up with a girl in the house, right? Apart from my mum. So even that dynamic is very different. So I'm learning from Hannah, right? All the time about that. And so it's like, hang on, should I be saying that or should I not? Or what's actually happening in their mind, in their little minds, right?
Exactly, and what they're learning and things like that. I think I did a very similar thing recently. I was actually talking to my dad, who's her granddad. And I kind of looked back and I was like, wow, that's her granddad. And if I think back to when I was, maybe not two, maybe a bit older, but my earliest memories of my granddad, I was like, he was always old. Because he was granddad. I'm like, so she's only going to see my dad as being old.
Yeah.
Which is like, kind of a little bit upsetting, because it's like, well, he wasn't always like that. He used to be able to do a lot more. He used to be fun. He used to do, he's still fun. He's still doing a load of things. But it makes you kind of think like, oh, we're getting older. And it's quite scary, but definitely it's quite an interesting thing to look at and to understand. If we come back to business then, so just pulling it back, what's happened towards the end of FloatRower? So you've done it for a few years and you're no longer doing it?
No, so we obviously, I started contracting, and the following year, obviously the pandemic happened and we weren't ready to launch or do anything yet. We were in pre-production stage at that point. We started to demo it with some of the rowers, as well as some potential investors and other people key stakeholders who could potentially get involved. One of those people will know recently from Dancing on Ice, Steve Redgrave. He's probably going to be more famous for Dancing on Ice now than his 5 gold medals. But we invited him in at one point as well to test the machine, and he came. And obviously we had help from that name that helped pull him in. But when he first visited, his parking overran outside the front of the building. And so that's a good sign, right? So he was interested. I came back again another time for this event. Again, very, very positive. And so we started to kind of build that momentum behind the project. And so we carried on developing it through the pandemic. And fortunately for us, I guess at that point, yes, obviously everybody knows what happened during that time, and even from the fitness and industry as well, where the likes of Peloton and other equipment, home equipment, skyrocketed. Not quite there now, just because it was what people needed at the time, right? But coming off during that time, we were originally targeting kind of the elite, the actual rowers. But if you look from a business side of thing, commercial, that's a very small market, very niche, very small. So actually, how are we going to develop this product that's going to get as many bums on seats as possible, right? And so, we started thinking, right, we should go the commercial route. Initially, we said, we should get it to homes. So obviously, we saw what Peloton was doing. It was like, oh, wow, incredible. But that's difficult, right? Because also, if you look at it from a product perspective, you're building a machine. You're selling one machine to maybe one person. That one person is going to use your machine. So you've only impacted that maybe one person or the family in that house. Your machine's only going to maybe get used once a day, twice a day, 5 times a day. But if you then want to try and launch something as well that could be a commercial product to build on a niche kind of sport, really, that a lot of people can't try because they're not near water. A lot of people have never tried. So how do you then kind of build on that opportunity for rowing and say, right, we need to go to the commercial? I was already part of the British Rowing Industry Forum at the time as well. So working with them, or talking about how do we grow the kind of the membership and the interest. And obviously, as you imagine, after Henley Row Regatta and the Olympics, the massive influx comes in from clubs around the country to learn to row because they've seen other people do it and it looks easy because they make it look easy, right? And because they're elite athletes. But we got to that point where I pushed it really to say, let's go the commercial route, because you build a relationship with a brand, a company who have multiple sites. Great. Rather than me selling it directly to you, great, you might tell your friends, they might buy one, but one location is going to have a few machines. They have other sites. We'll then get into those other sites as well. So the silver lining after the pandemic was that when everybody started to go back to the gyms, because they wanted the social side of things, they wanted to get fit again, etc., etc. But when you look at retention for gyms and gym membership, is you want to keep people paying their membership, right? You don't want them to cancel and move or just stop or just don't come. And the countless number of people who obviously sign up in January or something, and then they've got this membership that they're not using or they're paying for because they've signed up to it, or they cancel after a test period or something. So what basically happens from a retention side of things is you might have a queue of people ready to cancel the following year because they haven't used it and they can't cancel their contract. So how do we keep them? How do you stop them from cancelling their membership? So we started to reach out to other clubs, and we reached out to David Lloyd clubs. We were speaking to them, and we hit it off quite well with them, which was fantastic. Help Anthony was a member as well at the headquarters one. It meant that also we went and demoed the pre-production machine to their team, basically in HQ, and then one actually from HQ, their headquarters, but in one of their biggest clubs in Northwood, something like, don't quote me on this, something like 6,000 plus members or something. So it's a very, very big club, a health club. So we demoed the product to several of the staff and the trainers as well, and they loved it. What we then did was, obviously the Olympics got moved as well, and so off the back of that, hey, the Olympics was in the summer of 2021. Why don't we launch this trial with David Lloyd and FloatRower in September 2021, when people were finishing the summer holidays and they're going back to work and finish school, and actually they're going back to being active again. Let's launch it then. So that was the plan. It was supposed to be a 3-month trial, and it ended up becoming continuous, because I say it quite a lot because I've got kids, is that you don't take a toy away from a child who's still playing with it. The same with other things, right? And I've seen it happen live in front of me, is if you move gym equipment, people are like, where is it? Or if you get rid of it, they'll end up having complaints because somebody is going there specifically to use that device or that product, etc. And it happens a lot in different industries as well, but this one was quite interesting, whereas they were using it and we were getting data from the usage as well. So we were able to track all the machines as well. We were able to log in from the office to check what was going on so we can update and maintain them, etc. And we shared that data and that information with David Lloyd so they could see there's traction. Yes, there was an initial spike because it was new. Then it went down, as you would expect. And then it plateaued, which was good, but it didn't drop. But what it meant was consistent. It's consistent usage. Yes, you've got that initial early kind of let's try it because it's brand new, sparkling. Yeah. And then you got those consistent users. And then what happened from that point is that they wanted to kind of pre-order, and I became one of their kind of suppliers. So I was in the room with all their other suppliers, you know, the people like Life Fitness and Escape Fitness, whatever, all these other suppliers. I was like, should I really be here? Just start a trial. But what that meant was that we were in their plans for the next how many years for all the refurbs and the new builds that they were expanding. So that could have been like 10 to 15 clubs a year, you know, for 2 to 4 machines in each club. Quite significant to start off, right? Not a bad brand and company to kind of get involved with first. The trial continued until we could eventually replace them with production machines. And that was basically what we'd agreed on, which meant that we were still getting more information and data from the live testing, basically. And we would basically go down and maintain, Royal We and a couple others, maintain the machines. And we're learning from it. From a design engineer's perspective, it's invaluable because we are seeing firsthand how other people are using the product, but also what's actually happening to the bits inside, you know, the gearing or the fans, etc. How do we resolve those issues that are happening if there's any issues, or how can we improve something? So it's really invaluable from my perspective. So we did all that for free because we were learning from it until we could then swap the machines out. And then they'll pay for the production ones. But during that time as well, we launched, trained over 25 gym staff at their training facility as well. So we kind of delivered that. We built the machines ourselves. We built like, I think 10 by that point, got 8 down to their training facility in Heston, and had all their PTs and gym floor staff from 4 different clubs come to this site so we could teach them and train them about how to row, as well as the machines, how to create custom workouts, how to then create gym floor classes, which when we developed for them as well and launched into their app. So we integrated not just the product, well, we didn't just sell a product and say, good luck, let us know how you get on. It was, I'd come up with the idea to integrate it more into their business. So how do we add more value to them as well as the members? So, and also so that people could actually use it and not be another product that's just sat over in the corner somewhere. So we developed gym floor classes, got it onto their app so that they could also create their own classes and they could deliver them themselves. What actually happened from that in the industry, they call it PT penetration. So how many people get personal training classes or sessions throughout the month from every personal trainer. So off the back of some of those classes, some of the trainers were getting PT sessions, bookings from those classes. So what it actually did, it added value to their wider business model, which could be really valuable. You know, if that continued over several years, it's paid for itself, whilst you get all the other benefits. So that all happened, and we were continuing doing that. We exhibited at the Excel in 2022, which was incredible, and one of the most innovative products that was there, I was told. Shouting myself, I would, but you know, other people were telling me that, which was lovely to hear. And unfortunately, then towards the end of 2022, markets were obviously post COVID were all over the place. And so the investment basically was paused at that point to see what happens. So we paused it all, and then me being in the position, I'd already built up the team behind us to kind of turn this into something, to press the button basically, to go to mass manufacturing. We already built up a committee behind us to effectively be the board and turn it into an actual business. So the investment was paused, but everybody else who I'd built the team behind us, so from design, engineering, software, electronics, even the production moving forward and the financial side of things, majority who I know very well turn around and would work on the next projects with you. You know, it was just the purse strings were pulled or stopped. I was like, okay, interesting. So rather than hanging around and waiting for something to restart, I then it went straight into, I took a bit of a break, went to Thailand for a few weeks with the family. I think this was like towards the end of 2022, which was great, because also an old friend I used to row with, and still friend now, asked me to work on his product idea, which I'd helped him come up with or work out the concept of it like 2 or something years before that. But I'd introduced him to another consultancy because I was too busy. I was like, you should go work with them, because I got that other consultancy did a little bit of stuff for us as well at one point. So I started to help him work on the next bit of his project and realized I was still doing everything. I wasn't just designing it and engineering it and giving it back. I was still wearing all the hats, but joining all the dots. Rather than wearing all the hats, it was actually looking at the opportunities that could happen rather than just it being this design here. Is what else do we need to do? Okay, do we need to go find, he needs more funding. How are we going to do that? Where's the best routes to go? He already has some funding, but de-risking it, do we share that risk, etc., or grants and things like that. But we started to look at all the product compliance, more towards the intellectual property as well. And so at the beginning really of 2023, when I was working on this project and picking up another one at the time as well, was thinking, this isn't just product design. This isn't just, when I say product design, I mean physical product design, not apps and software, which is what a lot of people coin it with now. This is product realization. And that's why I kind of started using that term at the beginning of 2023, because it wasn't, like I said, transactional and that you design that and give it back to you. It was actually, we're helping people curate their projects. We're helping them work out what those opportunities are right at the beginning, even if they think they've got an idea for something, but actually that idea might be great for them, might not be great for me, or it might not be great for Martha or Joe or Bob or down the road. How do you look at those opportunities, and how do you look at that from a human and a people-centered approach to kind of expand on those and say, well, that's your idea, but it could also be this. It could also be here. And actually, who is that serving, right, at the end of the day? So even helping people work that out from that front-end innovation and really early stage side of things, all the way through now to helping people helping projects or businesses set up their manufacturing and their supply chain. And I say everything in between. And it's we're doing the industrial design, the UX. When we have software side of things, we work with our partners on electronics development as well, software development, and we do the design for manufacturer. And also within that is the product compliance, the intellectual property, and the R&D side of things, which is so important that people, they don't forget about it, but they don't see it important yet until later. But by the time it's later, you've either built up a legacy of how you've done something or created something, and it might not work properly or doesn't comply to something. Or from an R&D perspective, is that actually you're already developing, you'll know from the R&D, the tax credit side of things, right? And even patents and patent boxes and, things like that people aren't aware of yet, but we are. It's like, how do we integrate a lot of this information and knowledge that I know in the process as soon as possible, so that we are also educating people, because we know it, we've been there, we've done it. We've also failed. We've done something wrong. Or say, for example, the product compliance example with the FloatRower, I was 100 mil short on how far the handle should come out from the resistance outlet, right? Most people think, is that even a legislation? Is that even something that should be considered? Funny enough, it is. And I think we found that out later, after we'd already done the mechanism inside, everything else. But the impact of 100 mil sounds like, oh yeah, just add another 100 mil onto the strap. No, because that then changes the diameter internally, it changes the mechanism, changes the size. I'd already designed it and engineered it to be as compact as possible. But as soon as you do that, you're changing the mechanism, and then you're changing the feeling.
Right. So
all of those little things add up. And if you think, when you start to change that adds more time, resources, cost, etc. So it makes a difference. So something that could maybe cost $1,000, just picking numbers out of the air, $1,000 at the beginning could end up costing you 100 grand or 10 grand or something later on, because it affects all the other things that have already been established. Or it's harder to change something later because that's the way it is. You can't change that now because we've already built the platform, or we've already tooled up for something. You've already cut steel to make a tool to make these plastic moldings or whatever. So it becomes harder to kind of move the tanker, the ship, whereas actually do it earlier on when you're still a small boat, if you like. And I think that is incredibly powerful. And where that works now is that where we're educating people about the processes, they're learning at the same time. So they're also learning where their investment's going, rather than hey, it's this much, go do it for me. When you go to a shop, you see the price of something, you know what you're buying.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant, you see the menu, you see what you're getting, it's all listed out, and the price, you know what you're buying. And you don't, with something that you don't know, you can't quantify it.
It can be almost an endless supply of money, because it's just, okay, we'll add that, we'll tweak that. And I guess going back to what you said, that sometimes the money runs out. That's where it can become a big issue if you're not aware of the numbers.
Yes. If you're not aware of those numbers, either the money will run out or because you haven't planned to get more or budget for that, depending on whether you're a startup or whether you're an established business, right? I think it's really important to know those numbers. And I've learned this over through FloatRower. Had I not done that, going back to one of your earlier questions as well about how important all these other people are, had I not gone through this process and the experiences, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now and talking the way I do about the projects and developing a new process on how we manage and develop the products and the process and the whole development side of it behind that. And that's invaluable. Because now, yes, because I've gone through that, I'm sharing that with people who've never done that and saying, well, I did it here, here, and here, and this is how we're doing it now because we don't need to go down that route again. And what we actually do now with some of our projects is where we front load the kind of the feasibility and the viability of the projects as well. So yeah, the compliance and the intellectual property, but also we start to work with our partner suppliers as early as possible as well from a manufacturing perspective, because I've even heard it recently where you can design something incredibly, engineer it exactly how you want it, then go find manufacturing or someone to make it for you. You're going to pay a lot more for that than what it would have been if you got them involved earlier on. So if you're talking to manufacturers, for example, and they have a way of doing something, and that's the way that works for them. In manufacturing, it's processes, repeatable processes, right? And so you want to get that from the beginning to the end as efficiently as possible, and you want that to be running the whole time, without having to make any changes because that costs time, money, etc., right? To turn things on and off. Whereas if we can work with the manufacturers as soon as possible, we're then hopefully then going to work with them and how their processes work and how they're set up and also get their opinion on it because they've experienced stuff before making lots of different things. How can we also utilize their knowledge and their experience into our product development process as we're designing for manufacture? Whereas if you go and say, go make this for me, they're going to make it for you, but you're going to pay for it because they'll have to change a lot of how they work.
I guess that's finally making it affordable. So you left FloatRower as essentially kind of still paused? Or
still paused. There's lots of intellectual property, something like 8 or 9 patents or something, which we registered, and quite a lot of those granted. So.
Would you go back? Are you planning on unpausing it, hitting play?
There's been other opportunities that have come up as well with other players in the market, if that makes sense. There have been other conversations, but whether they all are looking at the intellectual property or whether they want to do something themselves. So from my perspective, because I don't own that intellectual property, it's very different for me to make those decisions. Whereas what I've been doing over the last, say, 18 to 24 months has been incredibly valuable. I was talking to someone the other day about it, actually, who I've worked with for a long time. And I basically said, I want to carry on doing what I'm doing now as well as developing our own products, which we're working on one as well as client projects. So if we can do that, that'd be fantastic because then we're doing both sides and it's exciting in both ways. But what I've been doing over the last, say, 18 months really is, we're talking about that kind of adding value, if you like, and educating people. I enjoy that. I really enjoy it. Hopefully, when I do work with clients, a lot of the feedback I'm getting is very positive, is that they are learning from it as well. And they're gaining so much value that, we are then going to do the work, whether that's from a strategy perspective or actually us doing the design work. So yeah, I want to basically carry on doing that as long as they're relevant to each other. I think that's the main thing.
So that's essentially what Inond is doing now. It's the consultancy side of it all. If you could go back to, let's say, when you were employed, would you do all this again?
How far back are we going?
So we're saying you're working for that product, you've built them taps, you've done all of that side of it. This is going off on your own. Would you do it all again if you rewind back to that point?
Yeah, I'll do things a little bit different, I think, with the way I set myself up, as in ownership of, say, intellectual property, and have conversations about that earlier to make sure there's more investment into the people rather than the end outcome, if that makes sense. So I think that's one big thing I would change. I think throughout even my employed career, I've always had that kind of entrepreneurial bit in me anyway. And I remember even back in designing taps and showers in the bathroom industry, I was able to then my engineering manager was fantastic for that and let me kind of do it. I'd redevelop the whole product design specification process that we had in the business, and got an internal award for it and whatever. But the fact that I had an idea to do something, to hopefully make something better, I was allowed to do it. And I think it's that entrepreneurship kind of thing, right? Of actually almost like you're trying to develop something new, not just follow those standard operating procedures the way we're doing it, but actually have that opportunity to try something internally. It's the best probably time to do it because you're safe, in inverted commas, whilst you're employed. But even at that time was getting given those opportunities to, and I think that's the other thing for managers as well, is to give those other people the opportunities just because that's their spec. That actually, there's two different people, right? Someone will say, I don't want to do it because it's not in my job role. What kind of mindset is that? But also is the other person who would be like, I'd love to do that because I know the opportunity will come off of that. And that's where we are from a growth mindset perspective. So when I was working in Bristan was also like the walk-in bath side of thing. No one else was managing the inclusive design range. I stuck my hand up and said, well, I'll do it because it was interesting to me. And I've worked with OTs and a really great OT. I'll share this link with her as well afterwards because hopefully we can do some more work in the future, because one of our projects we're working on now is to do with para rowers and para athletes and making more things accessible, making more things inclusive for more people. And, being able to have that opportunity helped obviously grow interest in other areas that is now informing what I'm doing now. Had I not had that opportunity then, would I be as interested or as knowledgeable about that area as I may not have been? So even from that aspect was working with the American parent company, having opportunities to go to America quite a few times and to Germany and to the other companies and go visit them. All these opportunities came up, which are very valuable, and making those connections with real people that you would never have met before. But even there is that they would have opportunities for the other companies to kind of put business cases together to get some money into certain projects which weren't part of their normal day-to-day. And I helped write or led the business case writing. This is when I was a design engineer, for getting £250,000 from the parent company to Bristan for us to start developing our own digital showers. And I was like, how did I do that? This is when I was in my late 20s. It was like mid 20s or whatever. But I did because I could and I wanted to. I think that's the main thing, is if you can and if you want to, try it. But just because you can doesn't mean you should do it. But if you see it all line up and it all makes sense and it's all relevant again, then do it, try it. And I think give the other people the opportunity to do that is priceless.
I'd agree. Opportunity and taking opportunity is something I've tried to do a lot recently, is jump at every opportunity I get. And it's taken me to incredible places. I've been snowboarding, I'm going to India, doing some things that I've never had the opportunity to do or never wanted to do. But actually try it, see what happens. Yeah. Don't say no.
Yeah. But there's a danger of that sometimes as well, right? Because you could always say yes. I've been there. And actually I did turn down some jobs last year or the year before, I think it was. They didn't align. And I could just straight away see that this isn't going to be fun. You've got to enjoy what we're doing as well. And it wasn't quite what I wanted to do and be known for as well, particularly at a very early stage. You can then get repeat. Great, but is it repeat on the stuff you don't want to do? Or is it repeat on the stuff you do want to do? And I think takes a lot of guts to kind of do that as well, because you need the cash flow in the business.
Exactly. I'd say it's probably one of the hardest things is saying no, especially when you're at an early stage or financially you're not quite, you're not sat on 500 grand.
Yeah.
The reality is, as a small business, you need the money, you need the work. So saying no, I think, is a huge thing. I think that's probably one of the biggest things we've done ourselves, is when we've said no, actually another opportunity does come up.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess, thinking it through and having the right information to be able to make decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess if we kind of look at going forwards now, what is your legacy? Where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself leaving behind?
Personally, incredible family and some very caring, considerate, loving children, which you already see, which is fantastic. And from also even there, when you flip into business, is that they are experiencing as much in the world as possible, because we're hopefully giving them that opportunity. From a business perspective, I think hopefully I'm really starting to do it, is building up that legacy, teaching people. And it's incredible. You kind of think as a rowing coach as well, you don't realize how much, I don't do as much now, but how much of that coaching world from sport relates over to business. And the amount of times I've been speaking to clients now, because it's a very different hat that I'm wearing compared to when you're developing your own product, or whether you're working within another company under another brand. You're now the brand. You're now talking about yourself and building your own credibility and putting yourself out there so people are aware that they know what you know and where you've been and what you've done. And hopefully you're already building up a bit of that with the education side of things, which I didn't think too much about, and it's happened naturally, which is lovely because, like I said, there's that coaching element and the business side where you are teaching people and you're coaching people about how to do something, but it's part of our process. It's the way we are thinking about it from a design thinking perspective as well, and it's how we approach our projects. So if we can teach them how to think that way, great. They understand where our world is and how we're looking at the world, rather than just taking something for granted, or taking something for granted is this shape because of that. But why is it like that? Why has it been done like that? Who decided that? Just because it's been done like that doesn't mean it needs to be like that in the future. I think it's always a way of thinking that keep questioning the world around us, be curious, so that then that's how we are growing, right? If we just accept it for the way it is, we'll just keep ticking along. I think where we're working with our clients and actually now I'm mentoring as well. So we are mentoring and done some stuff in schools and universities and in international ones as well. And it's then kind of taking the experience and imparting it back to them. So hopefully they are then thinking totally differently about the way that they were approaching something, whatever it was. And that's what I think is going to be the most powerful thing from, like, say, a legacy perspective, is that the impact that I or we as the business will have on other people or their businesses, and the way hopefully they approach things, rather than saying, and these are some of the ones I've talked about a minute ago where I said no because they didn't align with our values of, we want to make something that's purposeful. There's a reason behind why you're doing it, not just because I saw it over there online and they're making loads of money, I want to make loads of money too. No, that's not the right approach. You get to a point where if you haven't got the passion behind driving that product or that business, it's not going to be successful. If there is no money there, what's your driver to make that business work? Right? So it's then hopefully these other people that we work with have that already, and we're helping almost grow that fire, right?
It's that passion, isn't it? It's that burning desire to change the world, build an actual rowing machine that is real, that does work, that feels real and everything like that. And it then becomes your baby. It is another child. It's something that you are really so passionate about. Whereas, as you say, if you're building something as a product, it's just going to come and go. It could be a fad. It could be very short term. And it's a lot of work to go into something that's short term. You're looking at kind of long lasting legacies, essentially.
I think also sustainably as well. There's so much stuff that is made and consumed in the world now that we are all guilty of. And because it's been allowed to happen, we can get something delivered tonight or tomorrow because we can. It wasn't a problem back when we were kids to get it in 3 days or 4 days, right? It's just because we didn't plan for it.
Exactly. Although I do think that it's a shame as well. One example, I'm big into gaming. So I was talking to my friends, we used to go to game launches. Yeah. I'd sit at Tesco's at midnight waiting for that game to come out. Or I'd be outside game in the queue in the freezing cold.
With other people.
Yeah. And we'd be sat all chatting, and we'd chat to the people in front and the people behind, and all these geeky gamers are all talking about different things and how excited we were. Kids now, you pre-download the game and then it just gets switched on.
Yeah.
There's no waiting. You're sat at home. You've lost that excitement.
The build-up's gone, right? But you've also lost that human connection that you just said. You were literally in a queue, maybe in the rain, camping out, whatever, talking to other people with a similar interest. And that's the human connection. You were talking and you met other people. You may not have met them before, but that brought you all to the same place. And you might have got a friend out of that. Whereas if you're sat at home waiting for the download to appear at midnight because it's the next day, great. Then you're going to chat to them online. But
you're only going to chat to the people you know, or maybe not. But the reality is it's changing a lot.
It's the instant gratification side of things as well. And we've talked, we've got kids and they're now moving on. They don't have their own devices and things like that. And it's a case of, when we had to wait, we watched a DVD the other week. I was like, what's this? It's loading. We've got a Blu-ray player still, because we've still got old DVDs and Blu-rays, right? And we put it on with the kids. And they were like, why is it taking so long? It's like, I think there's a human element as well of for us, even if we're looking at something on, this whole thing about everything with AI, if everything's done too quickly, do we believe it?
And do we value it?
Do we value it? Do we believe it? If you go away and, if you go make something from wood, for example, with your bare hands, you can quantify the work and the time and effort that's gone into that. And what you're getting out is this beautiful bit of woodwork. But if you ordered there was nothing in front of you and then suddenly it was replicated, for example, right, from sci-fi. If it was replicated in front of you, like, what's the value of that now? Like, where does that energy come from? And I think that's a massive thing with the world right now as well. How do we humanize a lot of the tech and products and software that is out there that either we value it more or it actually gives back to us rather than just like feeding us with stuff that we are to consume? It's a massive thing that everybody needs to kind of look at the same time, whether it's also like products or even the instant gratification from social media or things like that. It's a minefield.
Yeah, and you've also mentioned AI here, which is a huge thing for me. Like I'm quite excited that we use AI and things like that. How much of an impact is that having on you?
AI impact on what we do, I don't think it takes away the human element that we are providing as a service as well, if you think about it as a consultancy, because we are people and we've experienced things and we've felt things. And a huge thing for me, even going back when we talked about FloatRower, was how things felt. And it doesn't know how it feels. And I think if we are experiencing something, that's why we always say, or I came up with getting the ideas from your head to your hand, because the amount of times that you might visualize something in one way, I'll visualize something in a different way because we were brought up differently. Different cultures, your staff, other people will think differently about something because of their environment or because of how they're brought up. And so how do we then get something from here to here as quickly as possible so that we are all kind of singing off the same hymn sheet and on the same page and actually looking at it in black and white and going, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, now I think it's supposed to be like this, or even just drawing or sketching something. I think that's an interesting side because then when you're talking about image generation as well, is you could ask it now, yes, Midjourney and the like, and Firefly, etc., to create an image, and it will go off what it knows, right? Not what you know, or what you're thinking, unless you're prompt engineering it correctly. But again, how many iterations are you going to go through in order to get what you want? Could you have just done it yourself first in order to, yes, make it a bit of a quicker process? I think from that side of things, it's positive in regards that it could help speed up workflow and processes and help communicate those ideas from people's heads, visualize them if they can't visualize them, or if they can't sketch or create something. And I think it helps because we've been there where someone's trying to explain something, but they can't quite explain it properly. Whereas actually you can, even storyboarding something and using images that, yes, you could use stock images, but actually trying to generate ones, I think is really powerful. From a business perspective, it's very useful from a content creation, but helping with copy, I think where we utilize it right now is also helping to automate some of our processes. So I'm trying to build a different kind of platform as well as doing the other work is to help onboarding as well, and taking everything we've talked about from this early stage to help educate people without us having to jump on all the calls, etc. So I think that's very powerful. And there's another thing, it'll come back to me.
Like I would say, it's like someone, I can't take the credit for it. Somebody said to me, it's like a graduate. AI is able to do a lot of things. It knows the theory behind it all, but it doesn't have the real life experiences that you've got. So you can get a graduate who's been to uni, studied, knows all of the theory behind everything, but doesn't necessarily know the life experiences or has done that. So that's kind of how I view it. And it's great for a tool. It's great to do certain things, but it's, as you say, it still doesn't replace the human that's had the life experience, that's put water into the product and realised actually water isn't what you need to replicate water and things like that. And I guess also for a huge thing of what you're doing is you're problem solving and thinking really differently. And I don't know how well it will do that. It'll be interesting to kind of learn. But I do think it is a hugely powerful tool if used correctly on the right things, being prompted by the right people.
And that is the main thing, is if you don't know what to expect the outcome to be, that's when it's dangerous. If you are not an expert in that field of what you're asking it to do, and it just gives you stuff like an encyclopedia that you've never read or known about that world, then you just use that information, or then that's when it's dangerous. I think if it's helping speed up your processes and your workflow, and you know what, and you go through it and you know what to expect at the end of it, that is valuable. And that's what I think is the most important thing that we're using it for anyway.
At the end of the podcast, what we tend to do is these diary of the CEO cards, the conversation cards. You've mentioned you've got some, but you've never actually looked at them. So this will be interesting. This is your chance.
I did that thing where you buy a book and then you leave it on the shelf and then expect it to kind of go in.
Yeah, why hasn't it kind of all gone in?
Why are those questions in my head?
So what we'll do is I will fan them out. You pick one, I'll answer it, and then I'll pick one and you'll answer it.
Okay.
So
I'm reading this to you. What is your definition of luck?
So this is something I talk about quite a lot, because a lot of people say about luck, when preparation meets opportunity is how I would describe luck. And I think I've heard that on another podcast before. I've heard somebody else talking about it. But it's essentially when you are, going back to the opportunities, when you are ready to take that opportunity and you're in a place where you can take the opportunity. I do believe that you make your own luck to a degree. Some people are very unlucky with certain things, like you mentioned, like Paralympics. Actually, if they were born with an arm gone or something like that, or they have something at birth, that is unlucky. I'll give them that. However, when it's kind of looking at growing your business, putting yourself where you want to be, getting yourself to being, creating these products, okay, opportunities have come up, but you've been prepared to take them. You've been prepared to jump at them. So that's kind of how I see luck, is opportunity meeting preparation.
It's valuable, the opportunity bit though as well, isn't it? Is when your world changes, those opportunities arise, and if you're in a position to do something about it yourself as well.
Yeah.
Right, not just wait for the right other timing, is that there's other things that come up that...
And I'd say everybody has opportunities. There's opportunities everywhere around us. It's whether you take it or not, whether you see it as an opportunity or not, whether you ignore it or not.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my definition of luck then. So for you, if you had a twin, what is the most important bit of advice you could give them?
If I had a twin, I'm sorry in the world, if I had a twin, what bit of advice would I give them?
What is the most important bit of advice you would give them?
Be yourself. Ultimately, I've learned over the years you're always trying to fit in with other people or other things or other places, but actually you are more interesting than what you think you are. And also you have so much more to give to the world than what you think you can. Just be yourself, and your world will be created around you rather than you fitting into someone else's world. I've learned that over the years, particularly having kids, because those little eyes are always looking up to us, right? And you'll know it now as well with your 2-year-old, is that is an incredible feeling as a parent, to be able to help navigate them through their world, but them to see us for who we really are and not who we're trying to be with fitting in with other people or other places. I think that straight off would be the most important thing, and I kind of value that now, and I drive that with the kids. So I know you're saying twin, but actually it's probably very similar to children, is that you want them to be themselves. Like you were saying about the gaming side of things, you then found a group of people who were similar to you because you all went to that place, because you were being yourself. Earlier in the conversation, I could have easily said about art and design and not mentioned Warhammer, because there could be the stigmatism behind people thinking, geeky, painting these little figures. Actually, I bloody enjoyed it, right? I enjoyed doing that, and that was very good, and actually had the skill and the technique to do it. I didn't play the game as much, but I enjoyed doing the painting and all of that and what came of that. So those little elements you could hold back and go, no, because someone's going to think I'm this or that, was actually just be yourself.
And that's what you hit home with the kids. Although I'd say it is quite difficult as well sometimes, like at school.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the hardest places to just be yourself at school. Although when you get out of that, it's a lot easier, because you start to learn that what I've learned is nobody actually cares about you. Once you kind of get out into the bigger world, like, everyone's doing their thing. They are the main character in their world.
Yep.
And but to be yourself at that point Yeah, and yeah, I would say exactly the same. Like trying to teach my daughter just to be like, it's really hard. Like when she's mischievous or cheeky, because you kind of want to keep that, but you kind of need to tell her off now and again because in certain situations you can't. So yeah, I quite like that. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been quite interesting, and I think I've learned quite a lot about you and the businesses. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.